thanks to Bob Soler, I am now the artistic director at the Croswell Opera House. And it is a shame that Bob isn't here with us, but of course you can see we're taping like mad, and I know he's here in spirit. He is celebrating right now with his family and with Sean Wiley, Matt Lacey, and Tobin Ost in Dayton, Ohio. So how cool is that? Very, very cool. So, you know, what we're doing is obviously we're celebrating Bob's 83 years. So if you have a story to tell, if you have a particular Bob moment, we want to hear about it. I'm sure Bob wants to rekindle his memory when we give him these DVDs. So this is kind of a free-flowing thing. We don't really have an order of events, although I am going to start out with a couple of Bob's proteges in just a second. But so if there's a quiet moment up on stage, feel free to come forward and we'll just see how the evening takes us. And we're going to learn, I think all of us, all about Bob. So, the man we love so much. Okay, so Julie Dolan and Doug Miller were two of the first people to meet Bob Soler when he arrived in Adrian. So we're going to let them kick this off tonight with their memories and some stories about Bob. So Julie and Doug, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Julie.
I'm Doug.
I'm the straight one.
Dougie, come back here! For years, people have wondered, some have known.
For years.
My Dougie has known for years.
Okay. For years, I've been the one that had to set the joke up, and he got the laughter. Yeah. So.
Happy birthday, Bob.
Happy birthday, Bob. We are here tonight to celebrate you, Bob, and all things wonderful about Bob. And Doug and I are so very fortunate because when he arrived in Adrian with his wonderful family, we were at Ledwidge Hall, and my memory of it is that somebody was supposed to meet him, and nobody was there to meet him, so we pretended like we were the ones that were supposed to meet him, because whoever wants to disappoint you, Bob? So we stepped into the role.
We quickly grabbed Eric, who was about 10 or 11 months old at the time, and comforted him, and we met them, and we got them on their way to their home, and it was very exciting. That very first day, that first meeting was a very exciting time.
So all my life of being in theater, I remember that was a great moment that we shared with Bob and his lovely family, Marcia and Eric. It was a great time. So we have a few things, and for those of you who've ever had the honor of being either at Mr. Ed's or at the Big Boy. Okay. Who's done this with you, Bob? How many of you?
Everybody.
Any creative out there who's directed a show, or costumed a show, or choreographed, or designed,
or wanted to see where he wanted to put his sofa the next time in his house, or saw it on a napkin.
So Bob would work with us, and we would talk on a napkin, and he would sketch, and I would write madly everything that he said, just blurring it out, and I couldn't ever catch up with it. It was always wonderful. So we're going to talk about Bob, the early years. How many years ago was that? Because I can't
73. So Eric is now 30. It was 1973. Eric is now 38. So they've been here about 38 years. And
so Bob was?
Bob was 45.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective. So to think that he came here to see a show that summer, had already visited Siena, and this is legendary. This is a great story. He walked into Francoeur Theater, which was about a year old at the time. Walked in, and he said to the two sisters giving him the tour, supposedly, he said, "Who's responsible for this atrocity?" using another nice word, and they said, yes, isn't it wonderful? So Bob came here, saw a show, ran down to the end of the block, got into the phone booth, called Marcia and said, I've found a delightful town with great people and an amazing little theater right in the center of town. And her next question was, what about the school for your full-time job? Oh yeah, that's okay too.
So he saw a show that summer. What did he see before he came to live
Can
here?
anyone help us with that?
Nine-
It was Showboat year, I
Little
think.
Mary Sunshine.
Little Mary Sunshine.
1776.
Yes, that was the summer.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember who was the lead in
A Little Mary Sunshine. Who?
Peggy.
Peggy. Really? Okay, so let's talk about his homes in Adrian, shall we?
He started off down at the lake. If anyone was here that first year that they moved into a little cottage in the lake. And
Right next door to Mary and Jamie Scott.
if you've ever helped him move, we've moved him 4 times, I think. The lake, Dennis, and Toledo. Front. And every time we move him, it's that damn grand piano. Every time, Bob. We took it down a little garden path to that cottage, 2 men carrying that thing. I was 21, and that other man was much older. We were carrying that grand piano. I remember the last time we moved that grand piano, it took 7 of us, and we refused to move it any further. We got in the room and we were done. 7 people. We've moved that piano many times.
That's how he chose his friends, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
So, he taught us at Siena, and you know, we can say a million things, Bob, but we have a little story about what happens when a professor goes on and on and on.
I was in a class with him. I took 2 theater classes.
And I think Mary Fitzpatrick was in that class, and Tracy Wygent, and maybe Greg Anakas,
Yes.
for those of you who know those people.
And it was down in the Old Smoker, a 1 o'clock class. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm absolutely enthralled by everything Bob is talking about. And he's talking, and I'm listening, and I'm so excited, and I'm really taking it all in, and all of a sudden he steps away from the podium, puts his hands out like Jesus, and I'm going, oh man, I'm going to see a miracle. I'm going to see a miracle. He puts his hands out, and I said, what? And he goes, look. And I looked around, and there are 21 people all asleep. And that was my shining moment when I realized Bob and I were absolutely connected forever.
Bobby
We would
was
go to
scared to think that too.
We would go to parties at their house. If some of you remember the early years, Mike and others, we would go to the parties at their house on Dennis, or even before on Broad. And if you remember back then, there was no way to see anything about Broadway shows. If you didn't have the album
Or the
program, you didn't have those things, you were lost. And we would listen to show tunes, and we would look at albums, look at programs, and then Bob would just go over the piano and play. And we'd sing.
Name That Tune was
What
one
an
of them.
amazing party we would have over and over. If any of you remember that, it was an amazing time.
He would do, now Bob would do, you remember this one, he'd say. And no, I don't. And then he said, well, you must know this one. And then he would remember the year, the stars, how many places it played, what the set looked like, you know.
And what the set looked like, and what the set looked like, and what it did in the second act of every scene.
It was amazing, right? And they were those stories and that way of looking at theater and art became part of us and helped, and certainly so many of you as well, but became our belief system about how you do theater, how you produce, how you direct, quality of a show, and we were never allowed to have anything less than
Really great show.
really great shows. Yeah, and we are proud.
He would talk about his road trips from the University of Wyoming, where he'd load up 5 students and himself in his Chevrolet, and they would drive straight through from Wyoming to New York City, see 2 or 3 shows, load back up over a weekend, never stay in a hotel, live in the car, do nightlife and everything, and load right back up and come back for classes on Monday. That was an amazing trip for him. And then later we found out that he did all sorts of trips like that. He declared one time on spring break he was going to drive to South America. So he got his friend in his car, drove all the way straight down until he ran out of roads somewhere in South America, and they had to tow him back out. One adventure after the other. You know, last time I've jumped to this. Last time he went to Vietnam, I said, Bob, you've been gone for weeks. I'm always worried about losing you over there. I'm serious. I'm looking at him and go, gosh, I'm worried. How was your trip? Well, I lost my hat. I said, you lost your hat? It looks like that. He says, yeah, I found one just like it. By the way, Bob, I have a green sweater on. I had to dig deep to get green. I bought brown socks just for you. We know if we're going to costume Bob at any show, we have to put him in brown and green or he's not comfortable.
You know, I was thinking, Bob, about the transitions you've made, certainly throughout your time here in Adrian, but at your time at Siena. You know, Bob went as a director. He was hired in as a professor, as a teacher, and then he was department chair, and then he was division chair, and then, you know, he had all these jobs he did that pulled him away, one would think, from running, you know, from doing theater, but it never did. And again, a great role model, because those of us who try to juggle it all and continue to direct, we only have you to blame. And also, when the nuns, and may I just say, the nuns.
Don't you just love the typos in the programs when Sister Therese Ty's last name was Tight? Sister Therese Ty. Yeah! Show a lot of that, boy. Let's run that joke.
So, how did you do it, Bob?
Sister Tight.
How did you put up with all those nuns telling you how to do theater? Holy moly. I just remember some of those days, the arguments that happened, and they were good. They were great learning experiences for us, because the knowledgeable, you know, and the one with the authority. And it was interesting.
He educated many people.
Yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
and I think he was there 4 years. Help me if I'm not wrong. I think he was at Siena for 4 years, and then came here. But those 4 short years really made a big difference. I know when he was division chair over Sister Janine Clem, who was an absolute, you know, the goddess of art over there. She had raised all the money for Franco, or raised all the money for Studio Angelico, and he was her boss for a year or so. And over Sue Hager and all of those, and I think they all grew because of it. I think he was an amazing new dynamic to the arts over there.
So let's name those wonderful women and men in that department.
Well, there were 6 full-time faculty, if I can remember. Mike helped me out. Dale Melsness came in, Sister Therese Ty, Sister Therese Craig, Sister Trudy. Yeah, she's now.
Where are you? Is
she here? Man, I shouldn't make jokes about sister.
Glenn Crane.
Yeah.
Who was part of saving this whole space too.
Yeah, he's part of that.
And he's living now in Hawaii, yes. Doing really well.
There was Dennis Kaiser.
Dennis Kaiser was on our faculty, that's right. And Dale Melsness.
Yes, that's right.
And I think Dale left because his building, he was our scene designer, his building and design wasn't quite up to Bob's part.
I've always thought that building was a evil means to an end. You do it because he had a vision, he wanted to do it. And I always lay on that same crutch. I always say, I'm not a very good builder, but I know it's a means to an end. You know, we can think about all those magical times in the early 70s, there and here, that changed our lives. And it's amazing to look out and see amazing people that made a true difference in what theater was all about here in the 70s and 80s. There are people here tonight that celebrate Bob's time here with us. And when you look back on the early 70s and 80s, you think about those shows that changed our minds about theater, that made us really truly believe. I remember watching Admiral Crichton. I don't know if anyone saw that show. He played Crichton, the lead. He directed it, he designed it, and he built it. And that was the 9-season year. That was 9 shows that year that he was doing. And
Did you say he starred in it?
he starred with you. That's
Um,
that's right.
We were love interests. We were.
We were?
Oh,
Oh no, you were Bob. Does anyone know that show? It's an amazing show that starts in a parlor with wonderful people in London, and they're going on a cruise, on a voyage, and the ship sinks. So it goes right from that parlor. The next scene is them in a lifeboat. Now think of this in Frankfurt. They're in a lifeboat, and I was sitting in the audience saying, "This is amazing." And it went right from the lifeboat to them slushing up on the beach, on the water. And then the next scene change, they have houses built on this tropical island. And every scene change, there was more houses coming in, all woven bamboo and branches and leaves. An amazing, amazing show with all sorts of gears and things, this Robinson Crusoe kind of thing. And he was the butler who was shipwrecked, and he was the only one that knew anything. It was so perfect for Bob because he knew how to build everything. So he became the king of the island. And the wealthy man's oldest daughter, the princess, they fell in love and she was becoming the queen. And the scene ends with them being rescued, and the ship comes in on the beach, and as they're greeting everybody, and they're just about to tell, "Hey, how did we survive for all these years?" Here comes Bob's character in his old, tattered butler's tails with a cold drink for the 2 officers on the boat. It was so sad and so heart-wrenching. It was an amazing show. And then it flashes back to the parlor, and they never get together. It's a great show. But that's one of many shows that we all saw that Bob was a part of.
But taught us so much about, how to do it, how to do it right. Now, I have to talk to Eric for a moment. Now, Doug mentioned that Eric was just a wee child when we met them, when they first came here.
Yeah, right.
And Eric, there was that one night when your mom and dad left us to babysit you, us.
Yeah.
Now,
He seemed like a very happy baby when we took the job.
And you guys
Every night it was the
kids,
same
right?
way. The parents would leave, and Eric would go into this tirade.
Eric screaming and crying, and I'd sing the same songs that Marcia did.
And I swear the door would open up and panic. And Eric was back down and, "Hey, there's Mom and Dad. Hey, that's good."
So, if you have any trauma from your early years, don't blame Mom and Dad.
I'm good. That's a good
example. So, I think that's everything we wrote on the napkin.
We have endless stories. All of us had great
And you
stories.
do too.
Yes.
But we were the first ones.
I pointed this out to Bob a couple weeks ago when we were sitting at the Alphaconian, and I said, remember, because Eric was there and Bob, and I said, we really were the first people, and he says, "Yeah, and I still stayed even after I met you." We've been blessed. We go through stories of all the wonderful adventures that we've gone through. It's his connections with New York and all the entertainment. Having Fantastics here. If anyone was here in '78 when they did Fantastics, one of the coolest shows ever. Having somebody from Broadway take a leave of absence, come here, play the show that's playing on Broadway, play it here, and of course it was the most lowest attended show ever. But it was a fascinating thing for us to have that kind of magic. When we did Godspell, they brought Lenny in, and when Lenny couldn't stay because he was doing something on Broadway or working on commercials or something, they flew in another person from the original cast of Godspell. It's amazing connections. For me to be working on stage, I'll tell one last story. Working on stage, and Bob says,
I have a last
okay, I'll tell one. Working on stage in the 70s, we're building shows, and Bob says, I won't be here Friday. I won't be back till Monday. And I said, "Bob, where are you going? You're going to Alaska in 2 days." He says, "No, I have a student coming in, and she's starting a tour, and I know you know this story, but I'll tell it anyway, and because it's a favorite of mine." And he said, "But I won't be here Friday, but I'll be back Monday. We'll be fine. You'll be all right." I said, "Yeah, it'll be great. We'll keep working." And she comes back Monday, and I said, so how did everything go? And she said, no, she's a stand-up comic. She's just starting her tour in Ann Arbor. And I stood backstage at the Hill and watched her work. And we went out afterwards with her manager, and it really was fun. I said, do I know this comedian? He says, no, she's really new to the business. You probably wouldn't know her. And I said, who is she? Her name is Bette Midler. I said, yeah, I know her. I know her.
So this is what we have to say, Bob. You were such a blessing to us, and now the circle of life continues, and our wonderful daughter Erin has continuing the legacy at Madison schools, and I am working with the kids in Adrian schools, and every child who has the opportunity to be up here on this Croswell stage knows your legacy, Bob Solar, and all the wonderful things you have done to educate so many, many people. So,
Thank you both. And I failed to mention, we have a couple of Bob Solar sweaters. You know, Bob, your sweaters are infamous. And in fact, for those of you who don't know this story, a year ago in October when Bob was down visiting with Eric and his grandchildren and Stephanie, his granddaughter Sophie says to Bob, "Why do you wear the same clothes all the time?" That's our Bob. So, if anyone would like to put on a sweater, cardigan, of course, before you come up, you are more than welcome. We've got some down here for you. Absolutely. And also, we've got a couple of people who have prepared some of Bob's very, very favorite songs. We did, Beth Wiley did some research and talked to Bob about some of his favorites. Of course, the funniest thing about Bob is, don't we all feel like we are his favorite? So, and actually, I think it's true. We're going to do a couple of numbers. Are you ready? I can't see anybody who's out there to sing. Jay, ready? Okay, so we're going to start with Jay, and then Dave Raines is going to play a little bit, so we'll do some musical numbers now. I think Dave is after you. Donna's doing it all. Whatever. Flexible. Oh, I think so.
I am one with Bob. I showed up here in 1984. I just had a baby like 12 months before that, and they were casting for Peter Pan, and I don't know anything. Bob, I didn't know anything about the Croswell or Peter Pan or anything. And after you cast me, you said, "How long have you wanted to be Peter Pan?" And I said, "I think 3 days." But it really stuck because I came back like 2 more times and I just love this role. And I really do think, Bob, I'm really not Peter Pan, but maybe a lot of me is Peter Pan. So this song, this song I get to use a lot, and I know that you like it. Conceited? Not me. It's just that I am what I am, and I'm me. When I look at myself and I see in myself all the wonderful things that I see, if I'm pleased with myself, I have every good reason to be. I got a crow. I'm just the cleverest fella 'twas ever my fortune to know. I taught a trick to my shadow to stick to the tip of my toe. I got a crow. I gotta brag. I think it's sweet. I have fingers and feet. I can wiggle and wag. I can climb trees and play tag with the breeze in the meadow If I were a very ordinary, everyday thing, I'd never be heard cock-a-doodling round like a bird so naturally. Just like a rooster, I'll be my own booster and let out a crow. We'll give the loudest and gayest and proudest of crows that we know. Everybody let go and crow. Happy birthday, Bob. And now we're looking for somebody else to come up and tell stories, sing a song. I know, come on.
All right, come on, Betsy.
Here come Michael and Betsy Lackey.
You get this side. I get this. You want me to put this here so you can? Yeah. Here you go.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
Lovely show! Wonderful show today!
We're sitting in front of the set of the show that we
Yes.
did. And-
Wait, you talk for a minute. This isn't the best part.
Oh, this is the best part? Anyway, all right, so.
Yeah!
Oh, yeah. Yes, he turns. He turns and turns and turns. Don't kill yourself. It turns. It turns. So, because Bob was famous for doing things that turn. So, yeah. So we did a lot of that. But anyway.
Once some more, Michael!
It turns.
Well, I didn't know. I was back here turning it.
Actually, the very first time I met Bob, I was teaching. Julie. The very first time I met Bob, I was teaching in Concord, and I didn't know anything at all about building sets, but I knew I had to put a set on the stage. And so I went to this man who I had seen Carousel the summer before, and I had seen this young person play the role, and I was so enthralled with the whole thing. So I went to Bob, and he's sitting in the office in the back, and I said, I have to build this set for, I don't know if it was West Side Story or whatever we were doing, and I don't know anything about it. And can you tell me, like, how do you hang the drapes, and how many feet are the drapes supposed to be apart from each other? And he looked at me, like I was, a cross-eyed stepchild, And he said, well, what do you want it to look like? And I said, well, I thought there was a standard. And he went, what do you want it to look like? And that's when I first met Bob, and he would help me when I was teaching. So then the kids that I was teaching said, you make us go and audition all the time, and you never audition, so you have to go and audition. And so I came one summer, and I auditioned for the show. And the teacher and me, I'm sitting there, and Stina Hokinson stood up, and she was going to sing the song from the show that we were auditioning for, Pajama Game. And Bob's going, I want you to do it like this. And Stina didn't do it exactly the way Bob said. And so the teacher and me said, oh, I'll show her what he wants. And so I stood up and I did it, thinking that, and then I got cast. I was so shocked.
Me.
Opposite me.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how we met.
This is your fault.
Yeah, everything is your fault. Everything. And Drew says that on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
you're right. Damn, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we got together doing Pajama Game, and then we kind of hung around. So we were
So to
around.
speak, yes.
We were around the Croswell a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, we did a lot. We really did. And so yes, the whole thing about writing on the napkins, that was kind of standard.
Okay.
And I would go, I had an office up on the mezzanine, and then I'd get calls from Gracie and Bob at the same time. Bob would be in the back office, Gracie would be in the front. I'd get this little buzzer, Betsy, get back here, you have to do this.
Betsy, get back here, you've got to do this. And then I'd be caught between the two rooms, not knowing which direction to go. And I often probably made Gracie mad because I came back here first. But, you know, it was because
It was Bob.
It was
you know,
Bob,
so
so anyway.
you wanted to do that.
So,
Actually, I first met Bob, I think, the year after Julie and Doug did. Yeah, it was 74. And over at Siena, I transferred in as a sophomore, and he taught me really everything I know about the business. I've been lucky to have a couple of good voice teachers, but beyond that, as a teacher, Bob was not only thorough, but he didn't let you get away with much. Actually, the two greatest statements that formed my career, the first one was from Bob, said, okay, now we all know you have a lovely instrument. So stop wallowing in the sound of your own voice and let's start listening to what you have to say. Yeah, but I did. And the other one that I've been fortunate enough to work professionally in this business for a few years now, and I've used Bob's quote, and I've given you the credit, Bob, for this one. Bob's always said, you know, athletes practice, musicians practice. So how come actors only rehearse? They wait till you get together and have a nice little community time and rehearse. He says if you want to be good, go home, get in front of a mirror, and practice your craft. And I did. And I did. Because of you, Bob. And I'm incredibly fortunate to have met, what's her name over here? And we have this, you know, is it compatibility? It is, because it's like Bob used to tease, because Betsy is a composer, but she's completely deaf in one ear.
right.
And I am
An
colorblind.
artist, but he's an artist.
I'm an
He's
artist with colorblind.
Right,
And so Bob would always say, Michael can't hear that, he's colorblind. Betsy, she can't see that, she's deaf.
And I guess it was, I don't know, 85, I guess, when we did Dragon's Tail. You know, this isn't the first show we've done on the stage, so. And you know, Bob was working on it, and I remember that we would spend these long hours, you know, just really pondering how we were going to do everything and what we do. There was one time when Bob and Michael were working on something, I don't know if it was Dragon's Tail or whatever, but they were really working hard on a project and they didn't know what to do. So I had Bob over for dinner and I made a really delicious pot of ham and beans. You know, baked beans.
We're talking a large pot. She took
and I thought, you know,
a picnic ham and stewed it down and
then
filled the pot with beans.
it was delicious. But I was thinking that it was going to be like, you know, something that we would have for like a week. So Bob and Michael finished that pot of ham and baked beans at night. And it was a Saturday, and the next day...
Thank God.
So the next day, Michael was supposed to go to church, and he said...
I literally got dressed, went and got to the door, put my hand in the doorknob and said, I can't do this today. And I told Bob that story, and Bob just laughed, and he said, oh, you lightweight. I was in the theater all day, it didn't matter.
So that was those were
Yes. And a jug of wine.
And a jug of wine.
Yes.
Yeah, those were the days when, you know, you had to have a jug of, you know, the pink wine. There was us, the pink wine, so anyway.
It was. I loved it back then.
But the other thing, you know, Bob also is very, very, very responsible for Michael being in Phantom, because when Phantom first came out, he had the book, he had everything, he talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and he would say, you need to go audition, you need to go audition. And so when the auditions came to Chicago, Michael did go, and his reason.
He actually said about a couple of people, you know, Michael Crawford had played had played Cornelius
and you had,
in Hello Dolly and had become the Phantom of the Opera. I had worked in Hello Dolly with Davis Gaines,
Right.
who then
Went on.
and became the Phantom. And Bob said, you know, you did Cornelius. The next step would be. I laughed at him, and now look what happened.
Yeah.
I'm in my 4th company of it now. Still, it still pays our bills. So thank you, Bob, for that
It's so good.
encouragement.
So anyway, it's all because of you, Bob. You decided to put the two of us together. You decided that we matched up.
Yeah.
And I guess you were right. And so for you, good casting. I'll tell you, that's
We seem to have this dovetail relationship because, like I said, she's, you know, a little
I'm deaf.
deaf. And I
You're
hear
colorblind.
pretty well, and she's got color acuteness. I'm not so much. She's the composer. I'm the wordsmith, and she is the director, and I like to design. So,
But this
I
is-
like to design only because Bob encouraged me,
Right.
and I worked alongside him several years here when we were both working in here. As Betsy would be doing publicity during the day, and then at night, you know, she was directing alongside Bob for several years, and I was his scenic artist, sort of the Phantom scenic artist, because the big drops had to be done when nobody else was in the building because they took a while to dry, and so we'd bring it down at the end of rehearsal, and I'd be here until 3 in the morning.
So like the summer that we did Into the
And
Woods.
Doug knows that
Yeah.
scenario very well.
So the summer we did Into the Woods, and King and I can't remember.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. That was
Thank
it.
you.
I knew there was one. So but Michael was here every night at midnight painting away, and then we were here all day long and all night long. And you know, that's why this place is our home, and it's our home because Bob invited us, and that's the reason why.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Okay. Well. Okay. I'm an actor. I don't know how to work stuff. Someone is a showman. So I, like so many, got my start in theater doing things here. And it's funny that so many people in this room contributed to that. You know, it was Peggy Sneed that called me and asked me to come audition for The King and I at the Croswell. And and it was because of Jay Hillard, who was my 5th grade teacher, that I was even interested in it, because she used to tell us crazy stories at the St. Joseph Academy about, you know, this happened when I did this show, and you know, all these crazy, and I thought, this is cool. And she told me some story about someone getting cut open and blood was gushing everywhere. And as a 5th grader, that's really cool. So naturally, I wanted to come to Croswell. But it was when I came here and auditioned, I didn't know what I was doing. I auditioned for Mr. Solar, and he just kind of took me under his wing, like he did to so many people, and led me down this path. And some people might find it funny that I call him Mr. Solar, and if you ask anybody that I've ever interacted with in the last 20 years, since I've known him, I refer to him as Mr. Solar, and I speak to him, and I address him as Mr. Solar. And that's not anything to do with any kind of formality in our relationship or friendship, but it's my way of always reminding him and reminding myself how much I respect him and how much he's taught me. And what a great mentor he's been to me these years. So that's why if you ever talk to me about Robert Solar, I refer to him as Mr. Solar. And I always address him as Mr. Solar, and then, you know, in return it's like, Mr. Ewan, and then, you know, we'll have a short banter back and forth about that. So, and it's because of him I went into theater, and it's because of him that I ended up, majoring in musical theater, and went to U of M, and he would always tell us these great stories that, anyone that was around listening about these old musicals, and I got this appreciation for kind of the heritage of the craft. And when Jerry messaged me and asked if I knew this song because it was one of his favorites, I actually did, because it's part of just who I've become as a performer, to try to not be one-dimensional in how I pick my material, and it's because of Mr. Solar that I have that understanding of it. So this is that's a Jerome Kern song called All the Things You Are from Very Warm for May.
Yeah. This is how theater works, folks.
I feel like I'm at an audition.
Fine. You got the part.
Time and again I've longed for adventure, something to make my heart beat the faster. What did I long for? I never really knew. Finding your love, I found my adventure. Touching your hand, my heart beats the faster. All that I want in all of this world is you. You are the promised kiss of springtime that makes the lonely winter seem long. You are the breathless hush of evening that trembles on the brink of a lovely song. You are the angel glow that lights a star. The dearest things I know are what you are. Someday my happy arms will hold you, and someday I'll know that moment divine when all the things you are mine. Happy birthday, Mr. Solar.
Steve, come on up.
I'm here.
We know.
Thank you. And thank you for coming back to this beautiful chapel of theater.
Absolutely.
I'm coming. I'm not going to stand up. I'm retired. I don't have to. No, get over here. Please, please, darling, I love you. I get to sleep with Peter Pan every day. And he's really good. Oh, I mean, she's really good. I'm sorry. This is not perverted. Well, maybe a little bit. Robert, I had up here. I wanted to bring it up here with me in a glass of wine, but unfortunately, I drank it. Foppish. That's what he told me. She had done Peter Pan. I was the second Captain Hook. And I came out and I was bold, I was big, I was evil.
It was scary.
And he said,
foppish, more foppish.
Have you seen his Captain Hook? Very foppish.
I am the greatest villain of all time. Who was Nero? Who was Bluebeard? Who was Jack the Ripper? Who's the... I got a hammer here. And Robert, I've had 50 people tell me about the time... Some of them are 7 years old. Some of them are older than me, and that's really old, okay? So I made a hammer for you. And the handle's red, and the rest of the hammer is gold. The gold is about what you brought to us, what you shared with us, what you taught us to do. The red is for the blood you shed. Because the blood you shed was yours. You had marks on your head, you had cuts on your chest, you had fingers that were bent up, and you may have thrown a hammer. And you did. But you taught us, you showed us, with the gold in your heart and the blood you would shed, to make this chapel a better place. Thank you, Robert.
I've seen these things flying through the air. Steve is absolutely right. I can't believe I'm stupid enough to follow these two acts. Hey, I'm also with Mr. Ewan over there. You asked me once to call you Bob, and I thought that was ridiculous. You're always Mr. Solder. And even before I knew you, because Doug and Julie taught me at St. Joseph Academy when I was a wee lad. And yeah, 2nd grade. You were my gym teacher. What the hell is that? And Julie, who is the I just want to run and jump and play memory that she has, you know, which is true. Apparently I said that because apparently I just love to run and jump and play. And it's absolutely true. And, you know, when Dad used to take us to the public library on Saturdays after, you know, it was down here at the JCPenney, I saw you, this shaggy-haired man, coming out of the Croswell, like every Saturday. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? That shaggy hair. So, Gary Lundy made me audition for Bye Bye Birdie. The high school was putting that on in 1985. And I was like, I was completely aimless. And he said, yeah, come on, just be in the chorus, it's fun, you know, and I broke my leg in the rehearsal process, so I never did that show, but, you know, the following year I just kept auditioning, and for some reason, you gave me the lead, or well, not the lead, but you gave me Amadeus, which I'm not going to sing a song, which is, well, it's weird since you taught me so many, and thank you for everything. And I know that for every one of me, there's a dozen more that can't be here tonight to thank you for the careers that we have. So, thanks, and happy birthday.